Hello everybody and welcome to The High Road. My name is Noel C. Blundell and I'm here with the Remington Liam Blundell. Hello mate, how are you?
Good afternoon. I'm going good. How are you?
I'm going very well for a Wednesday afternoon.
This is our podcast day.
Yes it is, and it's our sunshiny winter Victorian day, isn't it really? It's pretty traditional.
Yeah, winter. I'm sitting here in a t-shirt. Pretty warm.
It is nice in here though,
Yeah.
isn't it? Thank goodness for that. Yeah, today we thought we'd have a bit of a chat about the relationship between mothers and sons. It's a big area and there's lots to talk about. Why it's come to my mind is because I have been noticing a little bit that young men are struggling a little bit to launch, to leave the care of their childhood bedroom and their childhood home and leave mum and dad and go out into the big, wide, evil, terrible, scary world. And it seems to be a bit more prevalent as time goes on, that there's a lot more sons who are doing this. I've spoken to this subject in a number of forums, both publicly and privately, and in different sorts of public meetings. And each time I talk about appropriate masculinity and the young men's inability to launch, or the difficulties young men are experiencing to launch into their life with purpose, mothers get very invigorated and want to discuss this more. It's the topic seems to resonate with mums loudly, and that's mothers with sons from all ages, spanning from adolescents, 15, 16-year-old, right through to 30, 35-year-old sons who haven't left home yet, or have left home and returned, and a few issues. So it's a topic that I'd really like to explore and go a bit further along with. Currently, we are designing a course, a Zoom course to be conducted online, and for mothers to come and sit in and go through some of the issues, the very real issues that young men face today, that sons face today, and some strategies around what can help your son launch into their life, because it does appear to be a bit of a problem. What do you think, mate?
Oh, there's just so much to say about it, really.
There is.
It's a multifaceted problem. Can be approached from many angles, from the perspective of the mother, perspective of the son, cultural norms, individual differences, financial issues. It's just a multifaceted thing.
Plus, there's the psychological aspect of it too, where mothers are probably looking at the situation of their sons leaving home as a very real sacrifice.
Yeah, that's right. The mother's perspective, because they feel a bit, like they've been abandoned.
Correct. Absolutely. And there's also those other issues of fear. The mother's feeling that they're redundant, that they have been a failure.
Yep.
Whether the son wants to leave too early, they've been a failure, or the son is struggling to leave. There's issues of feeling like a failure, which is not really true. Also, there's issues of rejection, and of course, guilt is a big topic. All these we wish to talk about extensively. I know you come up with a really good phrase. It goes like this: a mother's preparing the road for their sons when they should be preparing their sons for the road.
Yeah, that was a great one.
Where'd you pick that up from, mate?
Oh, I think I read it years ago. I saw it somewhere and it just kind of stuck with me over the time, because I think that's going on a lot, and we've had some pretty serious times previously, and our parents have lived through much more life than their children have, obviously, and so
Yes.
they don't want to prepare their sons for the road. They want to prepare the road for the sons.
Yep.
And that's for better or for worse. Really, I think it's not the smartest way to do it, because society is a cruel teacher.
It is indeed,
and an unexpected one. At that.
It is indeed. You did right there.
You can't really prepare your son for everything, but you can give them a solid foundation to know how to handle situations and approach circumstances that aren't easy with maturity and, I guess appropriateness and all the rest.
Correct. Yep, I agree.
Just to sum it up very smallly, but getting out of my parents' roof was one of the best things me and my brothers ever did.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, it's it was obviously daunting at first, but
scary. Tell us about the fear factor.
It was. We were already discussing it, and it had to happen. I think I was 19 when I did it. Now I'm 24 now, 23 actually, turning 24. It was obviously pretty scary, but it's only like a couple of weeks of unfamiliarity, and then you get used to it. And then, you got a budget and you got to do everything. And there's resources out there, but it was the best thing I ever did. It was all so freeing, so liberating. I could do whatever I wanted. I could go out for as long as I wanted. Didn't have to be home at a certain time. Your parents' behaviours that tick you off and annoy you, that's not around no more. That was a big one for me, But, and you can have your friends over whenever, buy what you want. Obviously it costs money, it's hard to live in a society right now with hyperinflation of money and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But it's worth it. And it's not, in my opinion, it's not a waste of money at all. It's the opposite. It's the freeing of yourself, the responsibility take, because then you can perform for, others. Like when you live on your own, then you can provide that to your partner when you live with her.
Yep.
So it's a huge learning thing for me too, and what I can provide for my partner in the future in a relationship. Because it's like, imagine if I meet someone and I'm still at home at 35. It's like, how can I show my partner and provide a house and everything like that if I haven't even left home and I'm mid-30s?
Well, it'd be very difficult. And see, the milestones that you've achieved now between 19 and 23, if you didn't do that, you would have to approach and deal with those life challenges at 30.
Yeah.
And at the same time, with a wife in tow.
That's right.
And potentially, if there was other circumstances, potentially with a wife and child.
Yeah.
Right? Years ago, that's how it unfolded. Women stayed at home until they were married, and men stayed at home until they were married. And then they were married, and the wedding was consummated. Then they lived usually in their own home, and that's where they got their freedom from. They had to marry. That was the condition. The girl could leave home, and the young man could leave home. That was the condition. Those have all changed now.
Yeah,
where you have a lot more flexibility. You can go and you have a girlfriend. You can go and reside with them as long as you want. Don't have to be married.
Yep.
We have contraception. Contraception only come about in mid-60s. So therefore, that wasn't an option for people before that as well. So pregnancy was very high on the agenda, and a lot of children come into the relationships very early in the piece after the marriages. That was a norm.
Yeah, and there's heaps of things that impact sons as well. I've met people that are still at home by almost 30, and you can just tell straight away. It impacts them way more than what they think. It's they're not very good at making decisions. They're not very good at initiating or leading things. They're incredibly judgmental. They lack appreciation, and they expect behaviors of others, which lets them down. They are very, very protective and protected. They don't enjoy or face hardship. They're highly agreeable. The list goes on.
Yep.
And, I read into it a lot more because of my education background, psychology.
Yep.
But, I've known people that have been at home a very, very long time, and that's what it is. And it's very strange as well, because I think they're also, in reverse, more healthy if they stay at home for longer, because they're not taking up the responsibility of living, of looking after themselves. Someone else is doing that, so they're always going to be in good nutrients. They cook. The parents are cooking for them. They're high nutrients, and all that. They haven't picked up that skill themselves. So in a way, they're more healthy.
Yep.
But yeah, no responsibility. Kind of a bland personality in a way. Just a bit. I'm not being judgmental here. This is all observation. I'm making a statement.
Yep.
And they're highly dependent on their parents, and obviously there's there's multiple factors going on there. But that was just from me talking to people that are still at home. It's just like
some people have to stay. Some people have to stay at home because they have sick parents, and they feel responsible to look after the parents for that period of time. Which there's a whole range of issues that go along with that, and it's a bit of a different story. But nonetheless, you would still have to be diligently looking after your own well-being as well, and how that impacts on you. So it's very circumstantial and situational, really. But I'm not talking about those people. I'm talking about the people I'm talking about the young men who are sitting home on their computers. And they've done courses and they've done education, things along those lines, and they're still quite happy to sit home on the computers.
Yeah, I think really bad manifestations happen if you stay at home for too long. A lack of appreciation and the affluence kind of makes you bored, so you start going down, like doing weird things. Can't really think of any examples, but you just start occupying yourself with things that are really avoidant of the actual issue itself.
Yep.
And if people, sorry just to cut you off.
No, go for it.
If people don't really know what we're talking about, there was a movie in 2006 made, and it stars Matthew McConaughey, Failure to Launch.
Okay.
That's the movie, and it's about the film focuses on a 35-year-old man living with his parents who shows no interest in leaving the comfortable life that they, especially his mother, have made for him. And he meets a woman, and they're trying to struggle of moving out of the house. It's a whole movie about it.
Okay. That sounds funny.
So, and then we've got failure to launch syndrome and failure to launch movie.
Yep.
So there's an actual movie about the phenomena going around. So I haven't seen the movie though. Have you?
No.
Yeah,
you must check it out.
Yeah, might be good.
And have a look at it.
Yeah.
But that is a bit of a scenario. I've heard fellas say before when they've gone out and they're starting to get a bit amorous around a lady, and the lady's getting a bit amorous, and then how it all goes a bit flat when they say, "Well, come home. We've got to be quiet because I don't want to wake up mum and dad." Those sort of stories sort of kill the moment.
Yeah,
I've heard that before. But as you were saying earlier, mate, there's a challenge to this. There's a challenge. Moving out and standing on your own 2 feet, that's a challenge. Of course, it's going to be a little bit unsettling in the first little bit.
It's one of the first big challenges I think young people face.
Yes,
it's like they've got the structure of school around them all the way to the age of 18, pretty much, and then from there you're out in the big wide world where there's no structure.
Yep.
The only structure you have is, I guess, your own values and family.
Yes.
So of course it's difficult.
I think, it is, but it's not for a difficult long period of time.
Not at all, no.
But what you do is you actually, when you're challenged in any sort of challenge, you have to take responsibility for that challenge, to address it, move into it, lean into that challenge, and before too long you'll find that you become accustomed to it. You actually learn the skills needed, you actually apply them, and then you reap the rewards of being challenged. Then you feel invigorated because you've actually achieved something, right? So now, specifically to your situation, you'd be feeling a whole lot confident about all that stuff now. It's not a worry about...
No, it's not.
About leaving home. It's not a worry about parents being around. It's not a worry about... Because you've actually taken the responsibility
and I can
to do something about it.
I can tackle other challenges with the same mindset.
Yes,
I've
correct.
done this. This ain't nothing.
Correct. Yes, correct.
So it's a big confidence thing as well.
That's what I was getting to as well. And yes, you have to adopt some new skills, like budgeting, like cooking, like washing, all those type of things, yeah?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So
and the budget gets real tight. You really learn money.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the thing that I notice with people that are still at home. They shop to what they might eat, whereas I shop to what I will eat. It's like there's no flexibility here.
Yeah,
I shop what I eat.
Yep.
There's no room here.
Yep.
If you have more money, that's different, obviously. But when you run a tight budget, you don't just, I might feel like this.
Yep.
It's like you will eat this.
As students do run a tight budget.
Yeah, I was a student, so I was running a very tight budget.
Yeah. Now I was thinking about there were some topics that we were going to unpack in the course. There was topics like purpose. How do you help your son find a purpose? Confidence and confidence building, both for mothers and sons. standing on your own 2 feet, which we've just been talking about. Difficult conversations. I think that sons that are finding themselves still in their bedrooms playing games and getting healthy addictions of pornography and things along those lines.
Social media addictions.
Yes,
unhealthy diets.
Yes, and I think
gaming addictions.
Correct.
Terrible sleeping patterns. Goes on.
Yes, it does, and again, affects your ability to find your purpose when you can't, or having struggles to find your purpose. You're not being challenged. When you're not being challenged, you tend to revert back to childhood strategies to address adult situations, and that affects your confidence. So these are some of the issues I want to talk to. Difficult conversations, I think, is a big one, because I think parents get themselves into a situation where they don't really know how to approach or address some of these issues with their sons.
Of course.
Maybe the communication mechanisms are broken down so much that parents haven't sort of picked up the skills of how to talk to their children, adult children, and their adult children have sort of lost that ability to communicate and connect with their adult parents or elderly parents. I think that's a bit of an issue that needs to be discussed.
Yeah, definitely, because there's a very negative dynamic that gets developed when something like this happens, especially on the father and the mother with the dependent adult child, because they might go out to work and then you have a son in their bedroom that's done nothing.
Yep.
And yet they come home demanding the son to do things around the house so they aren't in their head deemed useless. Come home, have you done that? Have you hung this? Have you moved that? You know, because they're at home doing nothing, and so they're really just sitting there being useless in a way. So they come home and then ask them to do things because they think they are useless. Would I be wrong about that?
That is one dynamic, yes, that I want to talk about around difficult discussions. I also want to talk about the dynamics of it's not being discussed. Parents are just shutting the door, the bedroom door, and, the adult son sits in the bedroom in the dark on his computer and just twitters away. And that's a proverbial elephant in the room.
Yeah.
No one, and people are much, are overly agreeable, and they're just happy to leave the situation as it is. But there's a definite elephant in the room which affects communication, affects relationships, affects the whole dynamic, actually. And when people don't discuss it, parents are then in a situation which they didn't plan of enabling their child to sit in a dark room on a computer and just do what they want to do, whatever hobbies they want to do. It turns into the son being usually the son, just living a life of leisure.
Yeah,
buys the most expensive comic books and does their hobbies, be it golf or fishing or photography or whatever it may be, but they just exist in their own little world, a little cotton wool lined environment that their parents
are providing for them.
Yes, and enabling that. Parents don't know how to actually open up discussions around that. And sometimes it can get so bad.
That's a real touchy subject.
Well, it is, and I think it needs to be explored a little bit better, and that needs to be approached by the parents with confidence and with language and strategies and steps. Now, the course is going to go into that. It's a hard road to launch out into your life for a young man. It's very, very scary. And talking about those fears and articulating some strategies around how to deal with those fears and providing support, where the parents provide support to the young man to launch out into that fear and lean into that fear.
Yeah.
Right? I love that old saying.
I think it's also important to highlight the early signs of it too.
Absolutely.
Because it is very easy for parents to go, oh yeah, it's just a phase.
It's best if you get it young. It's best if you get it young.
And I think one of the very first signs is refusal of school.
Refusal of anything really, because it's for the child must take responsibility in the household and have a responsibility, be that taking the milk cartons out for the recycling, or be that picking up after yourself, or be that washing dish here and there. I think is vitally important.
Yep.
For the child, particularly young male child, to take a bit of responsibility for themselves. Because I know parents, and I've suffered this myself, that's just quicker for me to do it, right? It's just quicker for me to do it.
Yep.
You know, give us your plate, sit down, go and sit down, keep it out of the way, and because I'm cooking and cleaning and putting stuff away, and I'll do the dishes, and right. And as a parent, you've got to get out of that, because you're doing your child a great disservice by doing that. You got to stand back and go, okay, wash your dishes, and mate, then they're going to muck it up, and they're not going to do it properly. And when they're finished, you're going to have to go and wash it all again, most likely, right? But it's not about that. It's not about having a clean dish. It's actually about the child taking some responsibility for their own existence in that home dynamic.
Which should have started at like the age of 3.
That's correct. And see, parents operating. Look. 99.999% of parents are operating from the most caring, loving premise that you could imagine. They just want to do the best for their children.
Yeah.
And they're happy to do everything for them, right? But there comes a point where that's not conducive with the good development of the child.
Yep.
Hence, it's culminating in we have. I think I've got a study here was written in 2024 from observations from a study from numbers that were taken between 2005 and 2011. Nearly 20% of young men are still living in their bedrooms at home. That's 1 in 5, right? So, you know, there's some of the difficult things that need to be addressed. Some of the other things we're going to look at in the course are antecedents to the problem, what comes before that problem, which is pretty much what we've just been talking about.
Yep.
The current situation for our young men. Now, I'd like to touch on that for just a minute. Again, I spoke last week, was it? It might have been the week before. I'm not really sure about there was a... The Victorian government has appointed a Minister for Men's Behavioural Change. Now, this is a bit of a concern because I'm thinking for young men here. This doesn't really deal with the problem, right? It's kind of stemmed from domestic violence to address domestic violence, right? Because we've had a spate of women losing their lives from their intimate partners through acts of domestic violence. Now, I don't condone violence in any way, shape or form, and any loss of life is a catastrophe for the families that are left behind and for the situations, particularly if there's children involved. It is an absolute catastrophe, and I don't condone it at all. But this is not addressing the problem. In fact, I think from a societal perspective, it's making matters worse because we're not actually discussing the issue in its entirety. That's another subject. But what I'm concerned about is the danger of telling boys and men that they are bad from that level of society and from government, that we have to appoint a minister to tell you how to behave, right?
Yeah.
When 99% of men don't condone domestic violence or violence in any way, shape or form. It's only going to instill in young men animosity, anger. It's a bad message that they are perpetrators in waiting, you know, feral by their chromosomes. Like it's a really bad situation, which creates a situation for young men to not want to go out in the community. They're concerned, right? They don't know, you know, and it's getting to a point where young men won't look at young ladies. You know, come on, people.
They won't talk to them.
No, men make up 50% of the population. Women make up the other 50%. Hey, hang on. Women make up 50% of the population. Men make up the other 50% of the population. If you get what I mean, it's a yin and yang thing. And if we're encouraging that men are bad from the get-go, it's not. It's really not good. And I think mothers have identified that it's a big, scary world out there, and this behavioural change stuff and the dichotomy of women are good, men are bad.
Yeah, and you know, understandably, because they're being fed that. They're being fed that they're victims of everything.
Absolutely. And I think mothers are a bit concerned about sending their sons out in society today.
Yeah,
and that's their sacrifice. They have to sacrifice. They have to make a sacrifice of their sons out into society, because if they don't make that sacrifice of their sons out to society, right, their sons will be sacrificed to the world.
Yep.
Because if their sons are going to spend their entire life in their bedrooms and not be challenged and not launched, what's going to happen with them?
Yeah, and I think men lead very hard lives anyway. They are measured by what they do and what they provide.
Yep.
And so they can't just sit at home and do nothing, and they'll be loved by a woman or something. They have to do something. That's just how it's always been. Men are working. That's how it's always been done.
Yeah.
And I suffered from that a bit when I was younger. I was told that I'm an oppressor, and I designed and oppress people through the patriarchy, and anything I do or say is because I'm privileged. And that was a really hard thing for me to take on when I was young, because I was like, well, how? I'm just a boy. I'm 15, just trying to get through high school.
Yep.
And
how do you digest that?
And like I have to exist as a walking apology. And I don't agree with that at all.
Well put.
I don't agree with that at all. I am my individual. I'm not grouped, or I was technically discriminated by the group. That doesn't matter. And I really struggled with that until I got educated and woke up and found role models that would agree with me and started speaking about it. But the state of the world is really terrible for men.
Yeah.
And men's mental health is a serious concern.
Well, that's the consequence of what's happening in this day and age.
On top of that, men do all the terrible jobs.
Yep.
Men do everything that's terrible. We build everything. We empty everything. It's just all the horrible jobs men do, and it's a very, very hard world. And it's relative as well to an extent, but how hard men's life isn't under the magnifying glass as much as they emphasize women's life. And I understand that. And of course, there's other issues that men and women both face, but men are the ones that are really in trouble at the moment, and not on a victim type of scale. It's not someone else's fault why men are the way they are. I think it's just a consequence.
Subliminal.
Yeah, I think it's subliminal stuff that's just a consequence of why are men staying at home?
Yeah.
Why are men not identifying with their masculine cause and picking up the responsibility of their father's values and their father's ways of life and all that. I think there's a serious issue going on there.
And I really feel for mothers and ultimately fathers who I think mothers, it falls back on the mothers a bit more because they're around the home a bit more, and they're sort of they're making the home operate. And dad's a little bit more absent in terms of that because they're actually fulfilling their traditional roles of outworking, things along those lines. I think the responsibility is falling back on the mothers, and they really don't know what to do in terms of nurturing their sons because they want to continue to nurture their sons. But it's conducive with actually getting them to launch and actually find the purpose in their life and actually live a fulfilling life. And this is some of the issues I want to talk to. Some of the other issues I want to look at are boundaries. What are clearly defined boundaries in the home, and what are boundaries that are being crossed? Once your child changes from infant to toddler to child, child to teenager, teenager to teenager, adolescent, and then into adult, everything changes. When your child changes from this is from lived experience too, I might add. When your child changes from a child into an adult, what happens with the dynamic with the parent and the child is, for when the child is a child, the parent has a supervisory duty of care, role, responsibility, where they show the way, and they present the boundaries, and they produce the rules, let's say, of the house, right? You're not allowed to jump on the furniture, no riding, I know with you guys, no jumping on the furniture. There was no riding push bikes around the house. That's it. No, I'm not replacing all that plaster. There was ball games in the home. No ball games, particularly around television, things along those lines. So the parents set down the rules. So there's a dynamic there where the parent is the supervisor, superior, the what would you call like the guiding hand, right? Well, what happens is when your children grow up, right, and become adults, that relationship changes from parent-child relationship to adult relationship, where there's adults sacrifices, relationship sacrifices. There's respect either way, and it starts to shift. The relationship shifts. Well, you have to, as a parent, you have to earn that relationship, right? It's not, you're my son, so you've got to respect me, and I'll bloody tell you what to do at 25. That's not going to work. That just doesn't work. That's not how it does work, right? But I think in these situations where the young men have failed to launch, is that's blurred that line. It's still the parent and the child, and the parent's thinking to himself, "Oh, we can't send your child out because they don't have a job."
Yeah.
Right? But they cannot get off their computer screens to go and get a job. They're not challenged to get out of their comfort zone, to actually do something hard, to be rewarded, to actually get through that challenge, to make something of themselves, to take each step of finding their purpose and finding their life and fulfilling their lives, right? So there's this bit of a dynamic, and I want to talk about that dynamic too with people as well, about that change of relationship, because you have to identify when your children come up, it starts to kick in about 17, 18, depending on the maturity of the child, right? And that where that dynamic starts to shift a little bit and goes from parent-child to adult relationships. And I think parents miss that window, and I think they don't identify that this transition in the relationship actually happens, and they need to respect that. Right?
And, just quickly, I think most parents, I could be wrong about that, most parents can't really do that when the child is under their own roof. Like, I've heard so many stories where, I turned 20 and I just didn't get on with my parents anymore, and I moved out and I started getting on with them a lot better.
Absolutely.
And that's where the adult respect comes in. But when you're under their roof, it's still an adult-child dynamic.
Yep.
But they can't shift that. And I don't think they know how to shift it.
Yes.
Or, you know what I mean? It's just a bit...
And I want to speak about that at length in our course, actually. Yeah. That's going to be broken right open, because I think there's a real blur of boundaries there, and it needs to be addressed, and it needs to be addressed properly. Some of the other issues I want to talk about is empowerment of mothers and empowerment of sons. Empower the mothers to have difficult conversations with their sons, and encourage and support them to move on into their lives and step into their purpose and find their direction in life. And be it that's going to be filled with mistakes. That's normal. You just, as the parent, you're there to provide support and to ensure when your son or daughter falls over, pick them up, brush them off, send them back out again. Don't sit them down and say, don't worry, darling, I'll do it all for you. You're just doing them a great injustice. Another thing I would like to talk at length with parents in the course is guilt. What's fascinated me always with guilt, particularly mother's guilt, I've found a very interesting psychological position to be in. I think if you have had a child and you've read that child through to adulthood, mothers don't have anything to be guilty about. They have born and nurtured a child through its infancy stages, through its childhood stages, through teenagers and adolescence to adulthood. You've done a bloody good job, and you need to appreciate that. And I don't believe that there is any real cause or call for guilt, mother's guilt, right? Something may be out of whack, well, accept that and move on. But actually dwelling in what they call mother's guilt, and I haven't looked at any research on it. I do tend to question if there is any research on it, and I'll bet you there is. But I want to speak to that extensively, because I think that is a guilt that is unwarranted. Right?
Yeah, well, that's a very hard thing for the feminine. Just feels guilt on a whole new level.
Yeah, and some of the solutions we're going to speak about in the course is steps to opening up communication with your son, right, and the realities of the situation. Because we need to dispel those elephants in the room, and difficult discussions. The quickest way to deal with an elephant in the room is to have a difficult discussion. And at the end of that discussion, be it one discussion, two discussions, whatever it is, at the end of that discussion, the elephant's gone, right?
You feel much better about it.
You feel much better about it, and things start to move forward in a positive aspect for at least a portion of the situation. Now, I dare say there's a lot of young men out there who are not going to like this conversation. Of course not, right?
Yeah.
They've been living in the palace. This is fantastic. Clothes are being washed, cooked meals every day. Don't have to do anything except game.
Yeah,
right?
floor vacuumed. And
Mums are doing the floors, dad's vacuuming, dad's mowing the lawns and the car's fixed and it's got fuel in it all the time, and I can watch TV to 4 o'clock in the morning, I can game all day Sunday and all day Monday and all day Tuesday, right? And all that sort of stuff. And all I have to do is put my empty Coke bottle beside the bin so Dad can take it out to the recycling, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
I'm telling a bit of story here, but those difficult conversations are going to alleviate this, and there's no way around it. You have to have a difficult conversation, right? And it's your, as a parent, it's your responsibility to have this difficult conversation with your child. You are doing them a great injustice if you don't. And in fact, if you don't have that difficult conversation with them, you're doing it because it's too hard for you. But the destruction you're inflicting on that child is going to be insurmountable.
Oh yeah, and it's a pretty tough question that could be, I guess, said in a different way, but are you sacrificing your own child for your own narcissistic gratification?
Again, that comes into the equation. Now, I don't. We don't do diagnoses here, and we're not implying that all mothers suffer narcissistic complex or tendencies towards narcissistic behaviours. We're not saying that. But sometimes it can be that the parent is concentrating and focusing too much on their discomfort and not the long-term consequences for the child. Yeah. And we're going to talk about those issues and how that can be overcome. Some of the other solutions we want to talk about is how to discuss with sons taking responsibility for themselves and how to talk about that and the benefits of that. And, of course, a big topic is going to be dealing with guilt. I think this topic is going to be responded to pretty well. I think there's a bit of a call out there for mothers to have a bit of a chat about this situation, how to move forward. Because you know what, it must be very interesting for mothers, particularly when they're having their firstborn child, is they conceive a baby, they carry the baby, and 9 months later they produce a male. That must be a very challenging situation to be through for a mother. You now have a male child, right, which has come from you, a female, right? So that's a dynamic that's been set up immediately. And I think that's where it all starts, really. Then how does a mother deal with their son? How do they approach what do you talk about? What is appropriate for women to talk about? And these are all issues that I think are going to be appropriate to talk about in the course. And these are some of the discussions we're going to open up.
And we never have really faced this before. Like our parents never really faced this before. You know, sons staying at home. It just wasn't a thing. And I think the emphasis on what men are measured by, because men are measured by what they provide to society, they always have been.
Yes.
But now it's a bit different now. So they're staying at home. Like that emphasis on what they provide and doing the hard jobs and being fearless and facing hard things has been taken away.
Yep.
And so we're kind of in this situation where sons are staying at home. So they need some encouragement. And we're hoping through our course it will empower mothers to, talk about this and take a step in the right direction with encouraging their sons to get out there, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And find a purpose.
Yeah, find a purpose would be a great start.
Absolutely. And build confidence. And when we haven't even touched on the son's self-esteem. Of course, there's going to be self-esteem issues there. There will be self-esteem issues there. So therefore, addressing these issues with your son who is spending a lot of time on the computer in their bedrooms and having difficulties launching, opening up these discussions and empowering them to get out and take a bit of responsibility for themselves and find their purpose and move forward in life and actually embrace the life that they've been given is going to have a positive effect on their self-esteem. So, self-esteem is going to be a big issue moving forward as well. So, look, there's going to be lots and lots of benefits to these discussions. I can't wait to get started, actually.
Yeah, so am I. I think I think I come from a pretty, like, I'm not a father, obviously.
You will be.
I will be, yeah. I will be one day. But I think having a father-son dynamic on board will really, really help as well.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
And
100%.
I'm looking forward to it as well because I think it is going to be a hard discussion, but, that's what we're all about.
That's correct. I think there'll be a lot of benefits from it. I think there'll be a lot of mothers out there that find a lot of relief in attending our class on this subject. Just the relief that actually someone's talking about it. A relief that they'll have a whole bag of tricks to take home to start addressing this issue with their sons. Even to the point where it might not be that bad. Your son may be living at home, and he may have a job, and he might be trying his best to do something. Well, even about opening up steps and strategies of how to support that son moving forward. Your son might be 16 and is struggling at school. Well, how do you support them through that? Your son might be 32 and hasn't left home yet. And although he owns a car and holds a job and does all that sort of thing, but just that next step might be a little bit difficult. Well, it's about discussions around that. The dynamics of each situation it can only be taken on its own merit.
Yep.
You got to give the devil his due. So it's all in detail, and every situation is different. So realistically, no one can really tell you what to do, right? Or make suggestions of what might work for you because they don't live in your situation with your son and your dynamic, right? So realistically, it's about having conversations to tease out what strategies are appropriate for you to move the discussion forward, to support your child to launch out in the big, wide, wonderful world. And it won't do them any harm. Yeah, there's going to be trials and tribulations. Yes, it's going to be tough. Yes, there will be problems and there will be challenges.
And you have to watch your son make mistakes.
Absolutely. And the more mistakes they make and get up and dust themselves off, the stronger and better they'll be. Right? I think that's a really important point to get across, mate.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, that's great.
This is fantastic. I can't wait to get started. I'm sure we'll have another conversation about this moving forward.
Yep.
I think it's a really good topic, and we haven't even. I've opened up a couple of scientific journals here on studies of children leaving home at a later age, and I haven't even touched it yet.
I think it's one of my favourite topics to talk about is the mother and son dynamic, and also just family dynamics in general. So I really like this topic. So
absolutely,
yep.
Yeah, so do I. And for everyone listening. No one's to blame. There's no book here. There's no really right or wrong. It just is, right? But it's nonetheless, it still has to be addressed. It still has to be spoken about, and there are steps and strategies to take. So stay tuned. If you want to make contact with us and inquire about our online course, it'll be held in July. You can contact us via AIMEDMEN, AIMEDMEN.com. Send us a line. It'll be set up on that website for people to enrol. You can find us also on Facebook, on AIM Motivation Empowerment Network, or Noel C. Blondell on Facebook. And we can also be found on YouTube, The High Road, Spotify, The High Road, and before very long, Rem, we're going to have Instagram.
Yep. We already have Instagram, don't we?
And TikTok. I can't wait to get on TikTok. You're all going to see my smiley face looking back at you saying, hello, how are you? Come and talk to us. All right. That might finish that up for you there, mate. What do you think?
Yeah, it was great. Thank you.
Thank you. That was really, really good. I hope you got something out of it. And keep an eye out because this is going to be a really interesting little course. I'm sure people will get something out of it to take away that'll be hugely beneficial. Not only that, I did forget to mention, when you start going down these roads and having these difficult conversations and you start addressing the elephant in the room, your relationship with your children grows stronger. It might be difficult in the beginning, but ultimately at the end of the day, there will come a point where your relationship and your bond with your child becomes stronger.
And they might even turn around and thank you.
I think you will find that in time you will be being thanked for actually taking the initiative and showing the strength to actually help your child launch into their life. On that note, we're going to finish up right there, mate. Thank you very much. It was good having a yarn with you, buddy.
Yeah, it's always great.
And look after yourself. And you look after yourself out there too. Great talking to you. And we'll be back very soon. Thank you. Welcome.
Take care, everyone.
Yeah, take care from us here at the High Road. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.